we can start by just getting to know a little bit about you. Where are you from?
I was born and raised in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't move out of Philadelphia until about in the late 70s. Right? That's where I grew up, where I went to school, And then, you get tired of a certain area and you move out, And I moved to Georgia for a while, and then I was back up here in Pennsylvania, Then I moved to the Lancaster area.
Okay. What took you to Georgia?
Ex-wife.
Okay. And now back.
Out of the back,
And
right.
what brought you back to Lancaster?
Ex-wife.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is round 3. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So I always make a joke out of it. I was with the Philadelphia Fire Department, and I got burnt at Gulf Oil, and I said that's enough for me. So I got burnt twice. She burnt me, and the fire department burnt me. So we moved out. But then moving here, I became a state fire academy instructor, and I enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed that. The responsibility was going around to all the fire stations and teaching them hazardous materials training. Well, before that, I taught fire police as well. And then a good friend of mine, who, matter of fact, has been deployed, Randy Rice, overseas, he took over that responsibility of teaching fire police, and then I took hazmat and taught exclusive hazmat and enjoyed that. And then I developed my own business to teach hazmat techs. There are 3 levels to hazmat: awareness, and then operational, which fire department guys have to know. Then there's technician. Those are the ones that actually respond with a team. Okay. And I was teaching a lot of those classes all across this eastern part of the state, and also private industry. So that's why I started a little business called estatetraining.us, which I've since retired from.
Okay. Are you still involved with?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm still assistant chief of the hazmat
Okay.
team.
What does that entail?
Well, it entails is more of administrative. There's a certain amount of training and credentialing you have to have in order to become a chief officer in Lancaster County Hazmat. I've had all kind of training. My goodness gracious, at least 3,000-4,000 hours of training, and you still learn. In fact, next weekend I'm going to a conference in Baltimore, okay, that has a material conference, and people come from all over the country to that particular conference, and they have classes during those times, and you learn different techniques and learn different theories from various people around the country, okay? And which helps improve your skills and the way they do so. So if they find something, an easy way to handle something, then they'll pass that information on to you.
And then you pass that information on to
Right, yeah. Then I give a full report back to our people, or we go to I go to the training committee, and the training committee will develop a scenarios and training for our guys.
Okay. What drew you to firefighting in the beginning?
That goes back to when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
I lived at 57th and Thompson Street in Philadelphia. And on that corner, there was a fire alarm box, and they had it out way up in the air. So I went and got a milk crate, climbed up on it, and pulled the alarm. And then I'd take the milk crate, put it over the side of the building there, and I'd sit there and wait for the fire engines to come. And I used to do that at least once, maybe twice a week. And then finally, this lieutenant comes up and he says, "Little boy, you see who pulled that fire alarm box?" I said, "Yeah, I did." "Well, what'd you do that for?" I said, "Because I want to see the fire engines." So they says, "Oh, okay, you want to see the fire." Now, he could have, had me disciplined or told my mother. So my mother comes running out, find out what's going on. And he tells her, well, if he wants to see the fire engine, bring him up to 61st and Haverford Avenue, and he can see the fire engines anytime he wants. Okay. So that's what she did. She walked me up there, and then she would leave me up there for a couple hours, and they were really nice to me, really nice to me. They let me wash floors, I did dishes, scrubbed the toilets out, they let me wipe down the apparatus, all that fun stuff. I just thought that was the best thing. I used to wake up in the morning, especially in the summertime, and that's all I had in my mind, to get up to that fire, and that's what got into my system.
So since you were 8 years old?
Since I was 8 years old, yeah, and it hasn't stopped. And now I'm 68 years old, and still got it in my system.
So walk me through your career and how you started. So after you were 8 and fell in love with fire trucks, where'd you go from there?
Well, what happened was that was not my mother's desire.
Okay.
For me to be a fireman. Okay, so I became to Temple University. I became a cinematographer, film editor, and I worked for Channel 6 and Capital Cities Broadcasting out of New York, and I did a show. I was a cinematographer for a show called Check It Out. It used to come on Sundays at 6:30. It was a minority programming. So I got hooked up with the fire department and did a couple films, okay? And that's what I did. I filmed it, and I got back into it again. And when they dissolved that program, well, as a fire, there's an opportunity. I did everything my mother wanted me to do. Now I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's how I got back into it again, yeah.
Okay, so did you just like apply at a...
Yeah, well, see, you see, we're talking back in the 60s, you know, it wasn't hard to be a fireman or a policeman or whatever, you know. Nowadays you have to have degrees and things like that and, you know, special training and all that. Philadelphia still does internal training, okay, because they have a fire school up on Pennypacker, I think it is up there, that area, part of the city. Back then, you went to fire school, and then after that, you learned everything at the station, you know.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you have a great story you can share with us about the early days in firefighting? Something?
Not that I can publicly tell, but
really?
You know. But no, there were many times that we different things that had happened over the years that were. I think one of the things and I have a picture of it, and I'll give it to you, that a guy sent me in the mail that has me carrying a little boy out of the fire. Oddly enough, I don't remember doing that, but there's a newspaper article, you know, my name and everything, and I don't remember doing that, you know. Then there was other times, like there was a apartment house, a nursing home fire in a regular row home that had been converted into a nursing home. And there were we were walking over humps on the 3rd floor, and I thought it was ceiling or other material down in here. They were dead bodies, you know, that were trapped over. Then one of the most horrific times was at a fire at a refinery, and one of the workers got trapped up around when the fire started and was burnt to a crisp. He was in a fetal position, almost like a chicken wing, you know, boiled up, and he had completely been charred. There was practically nothing left of him, you know.
That's got to be hard.
Yeah,
to forget.
it was. Yeah, it is. It is.
You had mentioned that you had gotten burnt.
Yeah, there's just a little slight. You can hardly see it there. Okay. You know, that's it.
Nothing life altering.
No, it wasn't life altering. It scared me more than anything else. Back then, you had these kind of canvas material running coats, you know. And when you put your arms up like that, the sleeve would go from here down to here, you know, and then some steam hit me in my arm, you know, from a busted pipe.
Oh,
that was
steam burns hurt.
Yeah, it did hurt, but I didn't realize it until somebody said you're bleeding, and then that's when it started hurting. What hurt was the treatment. Back then, they sent me to St. Agnes Hospital down on Broad Street, and they took a brush and scrubbed it. All your skin off, you know, and then they put this grease on it and wrapped it up and stuff like that, yeah. That was the hard part. That was the painful part.
So how far in the ranks did you rise of the Philadelphia?
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then after you moved back to Lancaster, were you still involved? Did you get right involved with it?
Well, what I didn't get right involved in it, almost right involved. When I got here, when we got into this home here, there was a vehicle accident out on Marietta. And there was a fire policeman out there, and I'm new to the neighborhood, and I didn't know where to go. And the fire policeman, I asked him, I told him where I live, and he gave me explicit directions on how to get to my house, you know. And I was kind of impressed with that. So the next day I went down to West Hempfield Fire and Rescue and made application. Right away they said, "Well, you were Philadelphia Fire. Yeah, we're gonna put you right into." Well, at that time I was a little too old for for climbing ladders and doing all that kind of thing, you know. And I had some problems with my knees at that point, which now they've both been replaced. But so they says, well, you can be a social member, you know, like the ladies auxiliary. No, I don't think I'm gonna do that. But so they says, well, we do have something else called fire police. I said, what the heck is fire police? Well, they take care of traffic control, crowd control, scene security and things. I said, well, let me give that a try. And I enjoyed that. And then that's how I got involved into the teaching aspect of it. One of the instructors, I had to take some classes on basic fire police. And Tony Riccardi came and says, you know what, you ought to be an instructor. So he connected me with the State Fire Academy. I went through, I had to get a teaching certificate, take a course called Educational Methodology. And fine, I passed that, and then I started teaching. So I taught directly for Harrisburg Area Community College. Okay, they would assign you the jobs, but your authorization came from the State Fire Academy. And then I took a job as a program manager at the Lancaster County Public Safety Training Center, which the county owns, and I worked there until 2010, and I retired from there.
Could you walk us through some of the changes you've seen over the years? What the changes through the fire departments and procedures and things?
The changes in safety have been great. When I was coming up, the Scott Air packs that you wear, you wouldn't wear those. We had one on the apparatus, and if you put it on, you were a sissy. Okay, or words to that effect, okay? Nowadays, it's a requirement, okay, that you wear them, okay, when in any kind of conditions. Meters, okay, now that can tell you if there's a flammable environment, if there's a chemical environment present there. We didn't have that. We used to go, well, that smells bad. So what, we're going in anyhow, you know. Statistics have proven that the line of duty deaths have been contributed to our practices we did in the past. They're less now, okay? We don't take as many risks. We fight these fires from the outside instead of going in like we were rushing in there. We learn building construction now, okay? How things are built. We understand now smoke, different color smoke, what it means, interpreting that. And it could go on and on and on. Just over this short period of time of 20, 30 years, they have learned a lot. The safety has been the paramount, because at one time there, and I think we may still, I haven't checked lately, but Pennsylvania was the #1 state in the country for line of duty deaths. And the ex-fire commissioner, Ed Mann, had been trying religiously to turn those numbers around, okay? And it's hard, it's hard. One of the problems that I see is that majority of our neighborhoods are all volunteer firefighters. Now, keep in mind, there's only so many hours in the day. And then you don't have that many calls like you do in Philadelphia. There's always an apparatus running, okay, somewhere. So you could be at a firehouse and may go on 2 or 3 house fires in one day. That's not hard to do there. But in this area, let's take West Enfield Township. I can't remember when they had the last working house fire. All right, they may have had one, but I may not know about it. But it doesn't make the news, that kind of thing, because it's rare. The other thing is this: the guys who went on that particular house fire may have been home at the time, didn't have other obligations, they were at work, they didn't have to take kids to soccer practice, and they actually made the apparatus out the door. Well, let's say that only happens once every 3 months, and you're not available. So how do you get the practice? How do you get the skill, get to use your skills? Then on top of that, to become a firefighter, my goodness, it's a basic, I think it's 180 hours first, okay? And then you have constant training after that. Well, taking into consideration that man has to work at least 8 hours. Then you have travel time. Then you have to have sleep. Then if you have a family, then there's football games and other activities in church and all that kind of stuff, all right? Time with your family. Where do you make time to volunteer? And so that kind of thins thing out. So you have to kind of depend on the numbers to make sure that you have enough people there to handle those responsibilities. One thing that in the volunteer service and in the paid departments too, they have what they call an incident safety officer, which I think is a very valuable position. He doesn't do any firefighting. All he does is supervise. He looks over to make sure everybody's doing the correct thing. Nobody is, say, working under a situation that may cause them some harm or to possibly kill them. Okay, and that is a very valuable position. So now, by law, they establish an incident safety officer as soon as they have a working fire or a working situation.
Okay. You touched on it a little bit too about the advances in technology and
Yes,
firefighting.
yeah.
It must have been massive.
Oh yeah, massive. I mean, radio communications is one. Now we have radios that you have so many channels. Back when I was in there, you had two channels, F1, F2. One was a regular channel, and the other was a fireground channel. That was it. Now there'd be 99 channels that the county may have, you know. And I have a radio in my car, handheld, that I can get one channel. They have to teach me over and over again how to change the channels. You know, county radio says, Chief Hudson, turn to channel C Bravo. So, and I turn to somebody else. We turn that thing for me because I can't figure out. You know, it's just too much technology. But that's one good advancement. And the other is the metering. We have meters now that can tell you if you're in a flammable area, meters that tell you if you're in a toxic area. We have meters that tell you if the O2 drops, okay? And also, not only that meter, but they have classes now, okay, to teach you to interpret that information, okay, whatever that meter says, and to govern yourself. So we're no longer thinking about, oh, there's a fire in that house or that building. If there's not a life safety issue where I need to go in and save somebody's life, I'm going to check things out first. And to the general public, they may see, man, how come they ain't put no water on that fire? How come they ain't running in it? Well, because what good is it you running in and killing yourself or doing more damage, okay? Find out, let's step back, take a broad picture of this thing. Of course, we're moving, we're preparing, but we also want to be wise about the things we do. Because you take a barn fire, okay? There's not a barn that ever caught on fire that you saved. They all burned to the ground, okay? So why put somebody inside an environment like that to fight something that you know you can't beat? Stand outside, what I call surround and drown, all right? And that's it. It's the safer way of doing it. And it's by doing things like that we'll bring our numbers down in line of duty deaths. The use of Scott air packs, I think, is one of the most important advancements we have. And that has to be disciplined, okay, for men to do that. Because those toxic fumes that you breathe in may not affect you today, but later on in your life will have an adverse effect on you. In fact, they have videos out there called the silent killer, all right? The other thing, the force of using seat belts inside of the apparatus, something that people don't even think about. Every fireman is strapped in a harness inside that vehicle. If it should, God forbid, roll over or get involved in an accident, their safety comes first. And that's a requirement. That apparatus does not move until everybody's belted in place. Yeah. So it's things like that. We used to ride the back step of an apparatus. That doesn't happen anymore, you know. I can tell you some stories about that, you know, falling off the back step. They used to make you walk to the fire if you fell off of it, you know. You know. So those days are over. That's safety. Even the construction of the fire engine is a lot better, okay. And those things that you take for granted years ago now are starting to pay off, okay. And if a lot of the older firefighters that have been around for 30, 40 years, they've seen the progression, you know, regardless if it's volunteer or paid departments, the progression has been the same. The National Fire Academy, NFPA, OSHA, NIASH, all those groups and organizations have worked together for the betterment of the safety of the firefighters across the country.
I gotta ask, what goes through your head when you show up at a fire and you are about to go in? Like, what are the thoughts going through your head?
Okay, I'm speaking for myself. Sure. when I used to pull up to a fire, the first thing I was talking about, is there anything that's going to hurt me? That's my number one thought, okay? Once I've got that out the way, then I'll make an analyzation of how to attack that thing. Now that I don't really fight fire, I do hazmat. I do the same technique. Well, we get to a hazmat call, my first thing is there anything there that's going to hurt me, blind me, take away my air, blow up in my face, all right, or get spilled on me and burn me? Once I figure that out the way, I can handle any situation, you know, within about 2 or 3 minutes. And then I can make an assessment on that, okay? Then depending on what is the situation, if we were just at, that I was a duty officer on, a propane tank, okay? It was leaking, it was an older one, was leaking from the bottom, which to me could have been a valve. It could have been the older tanks had vapor leak valves under the bottom of them, and could have been a lot of things. Fortunately, the fire company that was arrived on scene prior to my arrival there did an excellent job because of the training they've had, and in the hazmat ops refresher courses that they're required to have every year, they're trained for those types of things. Now, again, I go back to their volunteer. They have so many other things, bills, mortgages, and all that stuff on their mind, and kids and activities, that refresher only enhances what they already know. So when they come to an incident like that, they'll know what to do instinctively.
Does fear ever go through your head when you show up? Like, is there anything that you've ever come across that you're like, I don't know if I can handle this?
Yes. I believe that has happened. The problem is, I don't know if fear comes in. I think training and my dedication to self-safety kicks into place, okay? And I stop. And I think that's what, in any situation, police, fire, EMS, whatever, it's you moving forward without giving it some thought, okay? Yeah. I feel the ground first, in a sense, before I make those things. And that takes away the fear, because fear comes from unknown, what you don't know, what you can't expect. But if I can get there and figure, if this house is on fire and it's blowing through the roof, I'm not going in there, because what can happen with that roof? It can cave in, okay? And then I'm not sure what's inside. You know, is there a second floor? Is this a vaulted type roof, or things of that nature? So I'm going to make those kind of analyzations first, and then I'll make some kind of attack. That's me. Now, other people have other philosophies. I am not a kind of guy that's going to rush into a situation, you know, until I know what's going on. And that's why I switched from the firefighting side to the hazmat side, because hazmat is a complete opposite. We don't rush in. Okay, we sit back, we figure out what's going on, we try to identify that. The other thing is, even though we have a chief officer, we will sit back and we'll ask, what do you see? Okay, assistant chief, what do you see, captain? What do you see, hazmat technician? We'll ask other people to get their opinion. And once we formed an intelligent opinion and a decision and a plan for attack, then we'll implement that. Otherwise, we don't do nothing. Okay? Yeah. And that's safe. That's why in the history, and I may be wrong, but I know the numbers really enough, we've only had like 2 or 3 people ever killed in the line of duty under hazmat because of that reason, you know. And one of the 2 that were killed was something we learned, and it was back in '82. We learned from their mistake, so we don't do that anymore. Okay? We don't do that. And that one thing about the conference I mentioned, about the hazmat conference put on by the International Association of Fire Chiefs, those are some of the types of training that you have and experiences that other people have and they share with you.